And we are live here at the Frugal Crafter channel. I'm here with Sarah.
Hello.
And we are here to paint together and answer your questions. And you guys can chat with each other in the chat here on YouTube. And basically just a fun, pardon me, a fun place to just do some art and hang out and have a good time. No drama. So we're going to start off by sketching some seashells. And you might recognize this from my vacation paintings that I shared on Instagram during my vacation week. And I had a lot of requests to do this one. And it's really a very loose approach to sketching and painting. So it's a really great technique for, like, if you want to keep a sketchbook in the car or just have something to do when you're not, where you don't want to put a lot of pressure on yourself. We're going to use two brushes. You want one kind of in the anywhere between a 2 and a 4, I'd say. This is a number 4, and then something between like a 6 and an 8, and this is an 8. Just so you have like something bigger for a wash and something smaller for some detail. But as you can see, most of the detail is done with a pen, so you really don't have to worry about it. Feel free to go up or down a size if you need to. I'm using Cottman watercolors. The colors I'm using are yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and alizarin crimson. And you can find any of the supplies I'm using today at our sponsor, Jerry's Artorama. They have the best prices, and they have some great deals on the Cottman watercolors, and I linked that in the video description. So all that information, what colors I'm using, if you forget, it's all in the video description, as well as photos of this finished painting on my blog. So we're going to begin. Do we have any questions before we get going?
Yes, we have a quick one from Gracie Shack. She's looking for water-soluble metallic pencils.
I've never found a good pencil that's water-soluble metallic, but Karen Dosh makes a good water-soluble crayon, watercolor crayon. All right, so when I have a bunch of things that I'm trying to fit on a piece of paper, and I can see kind of on this one, I probably just started at one end and went across, and I ended up having to kind of crunch these 3 together a little bit more. So I think I'm going to start with this oyster. Oh, that's all right. You all right?
Just a tickle.
Oh, okay. I'm going to start with this little oyster shell here, but I'm going to put it a little bit closer to the center because I have a little off center here, and that will just give us a little more breathing room for those 2 shells there. And I'm just going to go right in with my pen, and this is just a Sharpie, nothing fancy, and I'm going to get that basic shape. And then I could put in a few accent lines for the little ridges that they have. See, we're doing a very loose sketch here. And then I can go from either side. I can work on this big one here, which we're kind of seeing the end of. And it's a circle, right? We look at the basic shape. We got a circle. And then it kind of spirals in. Then we got this one over here. It's kind of like a cone. So I've got, and I'll do broken lines when I'm sketching in pen. So I'm not really committing to anything. So I've got kind of this cone shape. And then once I can see that I've got a good idea of where everything goes, then I can put more distinct lines in there. I don't have to put a ton of detail. This is really, really a loose sketch. Now I can come over here, and this is like another cone-shaped seashell, and so is this one. I think maybe I'll do this one on the end first, and then I can center that one in between those 2. So we're going to go over here and sketch on this big one. And there was basically the place that we rented, there was this bowl of seashells on the coffee table. And I was up early one morning drinking my coffee, and I had my watercolors, and I just lined up a bunch and sketched them. And that's why there's such strong shadows on there, because of the way the light was coming in on the coffee table. It was casting a really harsh shadow, so I went ahead and put those in.
Rakiba Azad, do you ever make any errors when drawing with a Sharpie? If you do, how do you fix it?
You just kind of go with it, or maybe you might put a few like hatch lines next to it to make it look like a shadow. That way you can kind of hide your mistakes if you make one. And this one here, we get kind of like a cone shape. And by doing a dotted, like a broken line instead of a strong line, you can kind of eliminate any mistakes and kind of hide them a little bit.
Eve's Bolt, can you pre-stretch watercolor paper?
Yeah, you pretty much need to pre-stretch watercolor paper because you need to let it dry before you can use it. So yeah, you can leave it stretched for weeks before you use it. All right, I'm pretty happy with this sketch. And now I'm going to work on the background. So I'm going to use my, you can even go with a bigger brush than this if you want to, but I'm just going to wet around the shells with clear water. Remember, your wash is only going to go where the paper's wet, so just don't wet the seashell area and you'll be good. Can't believe how warm it is here today.
I know. I was surprised. When I left my house a little while ago, it was 91 on the back deck and sunny. So I think I'm going to get at least one last day of pool use.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's such a short season. You got to make the most of it. I'm hoping to go to the beach today.
And I might even make myself a Bloody Mary to have by the pool.
Oh, that sounds good.
While listening to a podcast. I'm thinking I've got the afternoon relaxed out.
That sounds like a pretty good afternoon. Maybe I'll just go to your house. Forget the
Come on over. I'll make you a Bloody Mary. I'll make you a virgin one if you don't want any vodka in it. Candace Tobacco. Hi, Lindsay and Sarah. Have you ever worked watercolors with vellum? If so, any tips?
I have not done watercolors on, I'm thinking she probably means a modern vellum, which is like a thin plastic paper.
She just says vellum. She doesn't say what type. So maybe what type.
Yeah, I haven't.
Because I mean, I know like the scrapbooking vellum probably wouldn't, it beat up and dry weird.
I think it would warp the paper too.
Yeah, yes.
But you can also get like Bristol board with a vellum finish, and that you could use watercolors on because it's a fairly sized board, and I think it would be fine. I'm using yellow ochre here up a sky area. Kind of, I want it to look kind of like sand, like maybe you're, instead of this being on a coffee table, it's on the beach somewhere.
Gracie Shack, do you know the light fastness of the Derwent Inktense pencils?
I believe it's not good. Most colored pencils have poor light fastness. Derwent is an ink versus like a regular watercolor pigment, so that compromises the light fastness quite a bit. So anytime you're working with a colored pencil, you have to be careful. The Albright Drewer watercolor pencils, I believe, are quite light fast. The new Spectrum Noir or Spectrum Aqua watercolor pencils are light fast. Anything by Caran d'Ache should be fairly light fast. They've got has really good light fast properties. But if you're using watercolor pencils, a lot of times your work is going to be in a book, like a sketchbook or a coloring book or a scrapbook. So it's not going to get the abuse that like a painting would get. And plus, if you do love it, just frame it under glass. That's really going to protect it. It'll last your lifetime anyway. So don't let it stop you from creating.
Candace Tobacco meant the thicker type of vellum.
Thicker type of vellum.
So I'm assuming like the board stuff maybe that you were talking about.
Maybe like Bristol board. That should work fine.
Board, thank you.
That should work fine. I wouldn't get it too wet. I wouldn't like flood the paper like this just because it might break down. But I'm adding some burnt sienna just to darken and warm it up. And now I'm going to make a mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Now my colors are really juicy because I actually just used one of these little, I save these little drink containers that like the flavor enhancers come in. And I just realized, because before I did a video on how to, you know, fill your water brushes on the go, and I used a screwdriver to take the cap off of this. And then I realized you can actually just twist it hard and take it off that way and fill it that way. So you don't need a screwdriver, but I used that to put a couple drops in each of the pans instead, because I didn't have my spray bottle handy, and it worked really well for that. Now, so I'm dabbing in that darker brown that I made here and there, just letting it flood out. It's going to be fairly soft looking. This is not our hard shadow, but we can go ahead and put some next to the seashells, because a soft shadow is a little bit easier to pull off than a hard shadow. So we might just decide that we like that soft shadow there better when we're done. Plus, we want a little contrast too between the light shells and the dark bottom part of the paper. I'm getting some sandy texture by tapping on our paint. It will dry lighter too, so you can see how light that is dry versus what we get going on here.
Susan Carson, have you ever tried rum in your Bloody Marys? I haven't. I'm not a rum person.
Oh, I'm a rum person though, but I can't imagine rum with tomato juice.
Well, if you use a clear rum. Maybe she means a clear rum and not spice. I can't do the spice rum. It makes me really sick to my stomach.
I like the cherry rum.
Oh. Ooh, that wouldn't taste good in a Bloody Mary at all.
Not. Woo. Well, maybe if you use use V8 Splash instead of regular tomato juice.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, can't put any, but you can't put any of the classic Bloody Mary. accessory, taste food things in it.
Well, I don't eat Worcestershire sauce because I'm a vegan and they have anchovies in it.
Oh, good to know, because I put Worcestershire sauce in my Bloody Mary.
Yeah, I think you can buy vegan Worcestershire sauce.
Can you? I'm sure you can.
So. And I'm just going to mix up my darkest shadow color, but it's going to have to, this is going to have to dry before I can work with that, but that's just going to be the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, just with less water. Yeah, nice. You get nice dark that way. So I think to hasten my drying, I'm going to blast it with the heat tool. So if you have any other questions, just fire away while I am drying.
Rakiba Azad, do you prefer paint or pencils? If you do, what is your favorite brand?
Well, it depends on what I'm painting. Generally, I prefer paint, but I have a few favorite brands of pencils, and I do have a Watercolor Pencil 101 free video class coming out soon. My favorite brands, I would say, I like Derwent a lot. Caran d'Ache is excellent. And the new Spectrum Noir, I got them right here. They're called Spectrum Aqua Blends. They're a light fast pencil. And the thing I like about them is they come in sets of 24, and there's 4 sets. So you can buy a basics, a nature, a floral, an essential, but there's no duplication between the sets. So you could start with one set, see if you like it. And then if you do, you can buy them one at a time, sets one at a time, and not have duplications. So I like that they do that. And they're light fast. Well, the manufacturer claims that they're light fast.
Christy Ballard, what is the best lower cost watercolor set to get? I'm just beginning.
Cottman's great. Lucas Studio's great. If you can get the Turner paints on sale at Jerry's Artorama, those are fantastic. They were on super sale last weekend for $19 for 18 colors. And that is, I mean, that's a higher quality than the Cottman. It is an artist quality. It's their in-house brand, so they can the list is like $150 on it, but they can bring them cheaper because it's their brand. So I would recommend that. If I think even the regular sale price is usually $30, so that's not too bad. But anything you've seen me use, I would say go ahead and give it a try. All right, so I think I'm going to start in with some of my darkest shadows. So I'm going to do the burnt sienna and grab some of that gray that I just made with the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And I'm going to go in and put in some shadows under some of the lines that I drew with a pen. And I'm tapping, stippling in here so I get that texture. Those side ridges on the more conish looking one. And I'm using my smaller brush so I can have a little more control. And we're going to be glazing on different colors, so we're just going in with our darkest right now.
Code Girl, do you ever teach classes in the Bangor area?
I have a class at my local library in Orrington. I don't have any classes in Bangor. I used to have a studio in Bangor before my twins were born. But if your club, group, or organization in Bangor would like to hire me for a class or something, just send me an email. I'd be happy to come and do something like that because that's fairly close. Again, still same color. I'm going in and adding little bits of it to the different shells where I see it. It's always weird painting from a painting because you're not going to have the you don't have the actual object. It's kind of like playing the telephone game, you know.
It is. No, you're right. It is. Yeah, because it's not going to be exactly the same. Rakiba Azad, do you sell your artwork worldwide?
I have shipped out to people that have asked me, like they've seen me paint something on YouTube and they would like to buy it. I've shipped stuff to England and New Zealand and Australia. So yeah, I do. But generally, I put all my stuff in a shop that's local and I sell it there. But you can always email me if you're interested in a particular piece. So now I'm going to grab this shadow color. Now that I have the shadows on those seashells, I'm going to let those dry, and I'm grabbing that shadow color that I mixed, and the shadow is going to be the strongest right up against the seashell, and then I'm just going to kind of work that shadow color out. I think in my original one that's a little too blue too, so I'm just going to make sure I don't put quite that much in there. And I am tapping because I want it the look of sand, so I don't want it to be like a perfect smooth edge. I want to have it a little feathered. always a little bit easier to deal with a shadow that doesn't have a really smooth, hard edge too.
Well, apparently Dr. McGillicuddy's makes a cherry flavor.
Vodka or rum?
Well, no, McGillicuddy's is it's a liqueur.
Huh.
They make the peppermint schnapps.
Huh,
That's Dr. McGillicuddy.
Huh.
Apparently they make cherry liqueur, and it tastes like a kicked up cherry. I'm not a big cherry. The grape one's really good. It tastes like Diamond Tap.
Oh, yeah. That's gross.
Yum.
That's nasty.
No,
Yes.
it was delicious. It's delicious.
I'm not a big fan of grape flavored things, but I love cherry and watermelon flavored things.
Ugh. See, I don't really like fruit flavored things, but the grape McGillicuddy's was delicious, and we may have brought some of that to camp a couple weeks ago. Just saying. We may have had some of that.
I like peach flavored stuff too.
I don't know. I prefer the real fruit versus the fruit flavor. It just never tastes right.
No, I guess not. But I like the tangy thing. Do you remember the old Jolly Ranchers used to come in like a bar? This really tangy fruit
Oh, Jolly
flavors.
Ranchers, those were good.
Love that. That cherry, the cherry Jolly Ranchers and the watermelon Jolly Ranchers.
I did love the Jolly Ranchers. And I think the Great McGillicuddy's taste like a great Jolly Rancher. Someone else said Diamond Tap, but I was like, more. But I don't like the peppermint schnapps because I don't like peppermint. I don't like candy canes, peppermint flavored stuff. I don't like peppermint gum. Ugh.
I don't mind peppermint gum, but other than that. I don't know what kind of mint is that in a mojito. I like that mint. Is that peppermint?
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've had a mojito.
I know. I was just thinking that's kind of a blast for the past. That was so trendy a few years ago.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Now we're talking. Great. Now, look, I'm sorry. I got it started. People are talking about Jolly Ranchers and Dr. McGillicuddy's and drinking. And putting Dr. McGillicuddy's on ice cream. Sorry.
Everyone's going to be loaded by the time.
I know, right? Sorry. I mentioned Bloody Mary and it all went down from there. Mojito is spearmint. See, I like spearmint.
I like spearmint.
Over peppermint. I don't know.
I don't know if I could tell my mints apart, though. If I had to sit down and taste, blind taste test mints, I don't know if I could tell them apart.
Peppermint's more of a bitier mint. Spearmint's a little gentler.
Interesting.
To my taste buds.
I'm going to grab a little crimson here and really water it down because I need to get some of these kind of salmony blush colors, and I need a little yellow ochre in that because it's just too bright on its own. Give that a try. A little more water. Remember, it will dry a little bit lighter. Just throwing some of that in there. This is a very loose technique. It's perfect for when you're sketching quickly. This also brings a lot of life into the shells. I hear Chewy snoring.
Big sigh.
Any other questions while we're...
No, just still chatting about spearmint and mint and things like that.
That's funny. I think I got a little too much pink there, so I am going to blot that a little bit with a paper towel. Oh, I did want to ask you guys a question, too. I just did this in my adult class locally last night, and I was wondering if if anybody would be interested in this. I know I just did a fall leaf. This is a pen and ink and watercolor fall leaf. So if you think this would be useful, let me know in the comments. Sarah can tell me if when the chats come through, or if it's just too much leaf, because I did a leaf like a week ago just in watercolor. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, because I can put that up there for you guys if you are.
I'm going to say that people will be interested in having pen and ink.
Leaves are nice.
Yes.
Leaves.
Yes. In all caps with 3 exclamation points.
It's 3 exclamation points. Oh my.
Yep. Like the leaf. Love the leaf. Oh, we have some faces making hearts.
Aww.
Joe Maskey says yes. Sandra James says yes. Leaf, leaf, leaf. Never too much leaves. Ooh, nice. Yes, would love it. More leaves. Yes. Yes, on the leaf. I love pen and wash. Pen and ink, please. Love the leaf. It's fall. It's lovely. I say go for it, Lindsay, from Cindy Matthews. So, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good to know.
Oh, well, that wasn't a nice comment. You're going to go away.
Oh. Get those trolls. Bring out the big hammer. We got the big troll hammer.
Beat me to it already. We got some good moderators.
We do. We get the best. I just took a little yellow ochre and ultramarine blue, made a really soft sagey green.
There we go.
And I'm throwing that in here and there too. It's nice to have a variety of neutrals. And we are actually working with 3 primary colors, but they're not your true bright primaries: yellow ochre, blue, ultramarine blue, and crimson. So we're going to get naturally a softer mix with those colors. But we're painting something from nature, so we do want it to have that kind of feel to it. Now I'm going to grab some yellow ochre and brighten things up a little bit on the shells. Any place I have some white I feel like I want to add a little color to, I can do with the yellow ochre. Did we have another question? Did I interrupt you?
Nope. Ian Jackson asked if it was the same as pen and wash, and then Valerie Connell hopped in and answered.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, you guys could use a dip pen if you didn't want to use a Sharpie. You'll have much more expressive lines, and your line widths will vary a little bit more, so it will just be a much more lively picture, actually. So feel free to experiment. Anytime I'm using a Sharpie, go ahead and use a dip pen or fountain pen, and follow along that way. Improvise. Now I think I want to do some ultramarine blue, watered down, but on its own.
Sandra Jane, since I can't go outside and find your lovely leaves to trace, any hints on where to find some to copy, print, etc.?
I would go online and just search like botanical leaf illustrations, and then you basically would have a pattern right there.
Paint My Photo would probably have some sort of fall
oh yeah definitely
somewhere.
Definitely Paint My Photo is always an excellent source.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
let me get out of your way.
The nice thing about botanical illustrations is there's tons of them for free because they're all in public domain, because they're old enough. Well, not everyone, any modern one wouldn't be, but the older public domain ones would be free. And then they're sketched with such accuracy that they make wonderful patterns. And now I think I'm going to add some warm brown. My gosh, you know, if we finish this early, we might have to just go ahead and do that leaf because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting done this real quick.
That's okay.
I gotta find a dry one to work on here. This one doesn't have such dark details. I'm just gonna put a few little dabs here for details.
D. Murray, is Tim Holtz markers, are Tim Holtz markers the same as using watercolor markers? Doesn't seem to paint well.
Those are watercolor markers. Tim Holtz ones are watercolor markers. And I'm just going in with my brown here. I think I will add a little bit of the ultramarine blue to it. And give some bigger spots over here. Slide my brush, just kind of stippling, dab, dab, dab. Oh, wow, I see we have 258 people.
We do.
That's awesome. Yesterday I said, oh my gosh, tomorrow's Friday. I had totally forgot what day of the week because with the holiday and everything. And then I was like, oh my gosh, tomorrow's Friday. Luckily, this one had been requested because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Shatter the illusion that I'm really prepared.
You're always prepared.
And then we just have the little spots in that to do. And they kind of just go there. It's almost like little stippling dots. Just kind of work themselves around the cone here, getting a little more spaced apart as they get further away from the center.
We have a couple requests for watercolor mum painting. Anybody who has ideas or requests for drawing, painting, please put them on Lindsay's blog. She has a section for that. That way she can have something to pull from and doesn't have to try and remember it in her head while running a household and taking care of a husband and 3 kids and 2 cats. And her empire.
My empire. Move over, Martha Stewart.
That's right. Martha Stewart is yesterday. The Frugal Crafter is today. Marilyn Shannon, what is the time of year to visit Maine?
Honestly, about next month, probably.
Depends on what you like to do.
That's true.
We've got hiking pretty much year round. Well, maybe not the dead of winter.
Snowshoeing, though.
But if you like skiing or snowshoeing or cross-country skiing or ice fishing or snowmobiling, you want to come in the winter. Then the fall is the leaf peeping with hiking and camping. Summer is swimming, camping, boating, camping, hiking.
Summer is probably the busiest tourist season in Maine. So if you don't want to be in the crowds, I probably would suggest not in the summer.
And spring, of course, you get all the stuff coming out. Still can be pretty chilly, but you can still fish and hike and camp. And there's always shopping and touristy places. Downtown.
Yes, absolutely. Downtown's great. Downtown in Bangor, Portland. Well, I think this is done. So what do you guys think? And we have like half an hour.
People were excited to hear that the leaf might
Let's
happen.
just do the leaf. Okay.
Let's do the leaf.
Let's do the leaf.
Sophia Orozco, have you ever tried Schminky watercolors? And if so, what do you think about them?
I haven't, but I really want to. They are on the list. They're just so darn expensive that, I have this one already clipped. I haven't been able to justify the cost of doing that yet, because they're even like a little set of 8 is like $70. Ooh. So I just haven't been able to justify another watercolor set yet. But it's definitely,
anyone from Schminky is listening.
Well, I did email them, asked if they had like a sample or something. I have not heard back, but we'll see.
Wow.
I'm just going to go right in with pen. My drawing might not be completely accurate, just to give you a full disclaimer. Why don't I just move this over a bit so you can kind of see it side by side. I think I can fit a little bit more on the screen that way. But so, if my drawing isn't completely accurate, please forgive me. I just don't want to take the time to pen it, because I did this for the first time as I taught it, so I don't know how long it really took me or would take me to sketch out.
I don't think people will mind being here for a few extra minutes.
Okay.
D. Murray, what do you think of Reeves watercolors?
I think they're really great for people starting out. They're very affordable and they're fairly easy to find. I know there's several big box stores that carry them around here.
Ian Jackson, Lindsay, are you doing that on a watercolor block?
No, this is just a watercolor card that I've clipped to a scrap of cardboard. Just feel free to give me your questions when you have them. I'm just kind of focusing on the sketch here really quickly. Well, this is funny. This is surprised myself. I was not expecting to do this today, but that is, and you can see how I correct my mistakes too as we're going along.
Marie Hansen, question: if I should post my aquarelle other projects, where do we post them?
You can post in the Frugal Crafters Facebook page. That's a great place. I check that. I go in and check a couple times a week. I put the Pages Manager on my phone, but I'm having a difficult time with that. It doesn't seem to, I have a hard time logging in that way, and I don't get notifications on my regular feed when I'm going through. I don't know. I'm probably doing something wrong.
This might be a setting on the actual phone. You can set up what you get on some phones. You can set up what you get notifications about. I get notifications on nothing. M. Namjoon, can you do anime characters watercoloring?
You can, yes, absolutely. A lot of anime artists use watercolors.
But you yourself are not an anime.
No, I'm not personally. But there are lots of really talented artists on YouTube. Bailey J is one. I recommend her work. There's another one called The Happy D Artist, I think. It's not her, isn't anime, but she has a lot of almost surreal, whimsical characters that she does. So I would definitely recommend checking both of those ladies out. Fantastically talented women. And I don't know too many because it's not a genre that I follow, but those two ladies, are fantastic. I'm going to grab my Cottmans here just because I have all the colors I need.
Dark 023, any tips on mixing colors on paper, like on the leaf, without getting mud?
Sure, we're going to go right over that because that can happen fairly easily. I got to set something on there so it doesn't keep flapping up on me because so prepared here today. Well, I was prepared. We got done. Gotta stop
That's
being
right.
down on myself.
That's right.
Cut myself some slack. You're good enough. You're smart enough, and people like you.
People like you.
We're gonna start by wetting the leaf. Autumn's flowers.
Autumn's flowers, especially around here.
Yep. Oh yeah, and check out this beauty. Remember last week when Sarah said, Lindsay, don't leave your brushes in the water. Well, I came down, believe it or not, the other day, and somebody had left my brushes in the water, and see what happens.
Brush elf.
Oops, let's take this one out of the water while we're at it. The paint is chipping now. Luckily, it doesn't seem the ferrule isn't loose, but whenever you're using a wood handle brush, don't leave it in the water. I get interrupted a lot when I'm working, especially in the summer or when the kids are home. So like for the longest time, I didn't use any wood handle brushes because I just couldn't be trusted. I'd get interrupted and forget that I had been painting something. And that's why I use watercolor, not acrylics, because I'd be throwing so much paint away because it would be drying on me. So I have to be better about that. Make sure I check my water bucket at the end of the day. So now I've got this wet, and I didn't go right up to the edge in some places because I was afraid that if I did that, I might end up going over the edge by mistake. So now I'm using a smaller brush, any brush with a nice point. It doesn't have to be smaller. And I'm doing yellow first because that's my latest color that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to add probably more yellow than I actually want because yellow is going to mix with red and be pretty. Yellow will mix with green and be pretty. So I don't have to worry about having too much yellow. And this is a Strathmore greeting card, and the Strathmore greeting cards are very well sized, so the paint will flow really well on them.
Joe Maskey, Lindsay, when I mix paint on my Pike palette, it tends to bead up in droplets. Why might this be?
It will get it'll get better the more you use it. You could try washing it with like obviously not where you've put your paint, but like the middle with dish soap or magic eraser to kind of remove any factory oils that could still be there. My Pike palette's really old, so I don't have that problem. It'll just get more beaten down and used up, and that shiny finish will
now
get
question,
duller.
could
Yes.
you maybe rub it down a little rubbing alcohol?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Take some of
Yeah,
that
took the
finish off,
grease
and then
off.
it wouldn't interfere with the
That's
watercolor
true.
paints. Okay, just an idea.
Anything to degrease it. Yeah, alcohol would probably work really well. And that wouldn't hurt anything. A lot of people are using magic erasers because their palettes will stain, and they'll use that to get the kind of just take the shine off of it a little bit.
Yes, LJC7271 actually just recommended using a magic eraser.
Oh, cool. So what I'm using here is cad yellow. So cad yellow is one of those colors that for the realm of watercolor, we would call semi-opaque or opaque, but you can see that you can really clearly still see your lines through there because you're using it really thin with a lot of water. So, you know, when a color is considered semi-opaque or opaque in watercolor, it doesn't mean that it's opaque like a gouache or like an acrylic or an oil paint. It just means that it is more opaque. And if you used it straight out of the tube, it would cover those lines up. So don't fret if you're looking at your watercolors and you're like, oh, Lindsay said get transparent, but this one says it's opaque. It just means that it's got opacity to it. It's just the pigment size, particle size. They're more opaque than like a paint with tiny particles. And now I'm using a little cad red. You use any warm yellow. It doesn't have to be cad red. And that's another one of those colors that, you know, full strength is quite opaque. And you can see it does obscure a little bit of the lines, but not bad. I have to change a thumbnail for this video now. I got to include the leaf.
It's two in one today.
It's 2 for the price of 1. I enrolled in a new class this week.
Oh, yes?
Yes, it's a brand new one at Craftsy, and I'm telling you, this instructor is a sister from another mister. She is so upbeat, encouraging, fun. Her name is Christy Rice, and her class is getting started in watercolor, or getting started watercoloring fresh florals. And it is a beginner class, so I do want to let you know that if you want to like loosen up or get back to basics, it's a great class. She's so fun. She only uses 2 brushes, and she's like, use whatever you have. You don't have to go out. She's like, I like Daniel Smith. I think it was Daniel Smith she likes use, but you don't have to have these. You can use the stuff from the craft store. That's $4. You know, it's fine. So I just like that. I like that attitude. And it was the thumbnail of the class that caught my eye. It's just this really bright pink peony. And I was like, ooh, I like that. So it's on sale for $19.99. If anybody else is interested, I have a link in the video description. And any classes you purchase at Craftsy from clicking my link, even if it's not the class I linked to, it helps my channel. I do appreciate it, but I just thought that was really worth mentioning because this instructor was just a riot. I really enjoyed her personality. Now I'm going to start adding some sap green, and you notice my colors are not going to be quite as bright as it is there because those have glazes, and we will be doing some glazing. And I've heard a lot of people say that they need some help glazing, so hopefully you'll find this helpful. And I'm mainly putting the green near areas where I've put yellow, because if I put it on the red, guess what will happen, guys? Anybody know? Sarah?
It'll turn muddy.
That's right. We'll have mud. Very good. You get a golden star today.
All right. Can I put it on my Bloody Mary cup?
Sure, sure. And yeah, so we don't want that to happen. So we're just adding it into the yellow areas, and we're getting a really nice wash color. We got a lot of glare there, so I'm just going to tip up the edge. I'm going to stick something under there so you don't have so much glare at home. And while I'm at it, while I've got a little paint on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the leaf stem. I don't want to put too much. I don't want to wet that first because it's such a small, fine area that I think we're going to end up with mud if we do that. Do a little yellow in the middle there. And you can always trace a leaf. You can go out into your yard, pick up a leaf and trace it. You don't have to draw it freehand if you're uncomfortable with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with tracing. Now, anytime you see any puddles in this stage, you do want to get rid of them. So what you want to do is dry your brush off, and this will allow you to soak up the puddle without leaving a mark behind, because if you tried to go in and do that with a paper towel, you would end up removing too much paint and you would leave a white spot, and you don't want that because it's hard to go back in a damp wash and correct it. So any puddles, just set down the wet brush and drink up the rest. And then I'm going to dry this so you can ask me any questions that you might have while I'm using the dryer.
Cupcake Cottage Studio, are you looking at a photo or just having fun using the colors you like?
I'm using the colors I like. I'm looking at the artwork I did last night. The leaf I drew from was all green with splotches of red. So I took artistic license at that point. But I live in Maine, so we have so many maple leaves, and I've been looking at maple leaves my entire life. So I have a good handle on what colors there would be in there.
Watercolor lessons. Does gouache paint rehydrate in a palette like watercolors?
Yes. But it might crack a bit because it doesn't have as much gum arabic in it as watercolor paints do. There we go. That didn't take long to dry. And now we're going to work on the shadow, and I'm going to clean up what I have on my palette. I'll use my little squirt bottle there. These things are so handy. I definitely recommend everyone to save their little drink squirters, because I have that seashell color, and I'm not using burnt sienna in this painting, so I want to make sure I get that off my palette. I like this because you can actually pop the palette. If you have one palette where you can pop the mixing tray off, pop that off, rinse it under the sink every once in a while, and that will really get all the crud out. I keep old toothbrushes too for cleaning, and you can scrub out the crud on the edges. Crud. Okay, so for my shadow, I'm going to take 2 colors that are opposites and mix them together. So red and green are my most bright opposites. So if you think holiday colors, you can always figure out your opposites. They're opposite on the color wheel. So I'm going to go with my sap green. And I'm going to go with my cadmium red. And now I've got a very orangey brown here, so I am going to have to introduce a new color. And the opposite of orange is blue, so I'm going to go with my trusty ultramarine blue. Plus, I love the fact that it granulates and it is beautiful, so that's going to give me a pretty, a really pretty look. And that looks a little too green, so I'll go back in with some red. And you just keep bouncing around until you've got a nice gray color. There, that looks pretty good. And try to mix up more than you think you'll need, because you don't want to have to stop and remix while you're doing a shadow. And now it's very important you clean your brush really well. And we want to wet the area that our shadow is going to go in. So if you look here, we've got 3 separate areas of shadow where the shadows aren't touching each other. So instead of trying to do this whole shadow in one time, we can break it up into 3 spots. So we're going to start with this one here. And I am going to wet the area that I want my shadow to flow in. Move that up so I can see the end of the stem. And I want to actually go a little bit beyond where my shadow is. It's going to be funny for anybody that tunes in late. They're going to be like, I tuned in for seashells. What the heck is she painting?
I thought this was seashell class.
All right, so I've wet beyond. And the idea is that I want to have a nice soft edge. So that's going to keep it nice and soft. And then I'm going to apply the paint where the shadow would be darkest, which would be right up against my leaf. And this is really a good way to approach it if you work in an area that's really arid, because your paint, like if you tried to wet all the shadow areas and then paint it, part of your paper could be dry before you even get to it, and that could be very frustrating. And a softer shadow is much easier, like I talked about with the seashells, a softer shadow is much easier to pull off than a hard shadow. All right, now we're going to move to the next area. I used a different palette in my class. I used my little travel palette, so I think the Cad Red I had was because it was the Cottman Studio, the smaller one. I think it was a hue rather than the genuine, so it's slightly different tone. So that one looks more, my shadow looks more purpley there. That's all right.
Different light.
Yep.
Lie by, any rules for picking shadow colors?
Yes, use something you've already used in your painting, because then you won't go wrong. That looks a little dark there, so I am going to blot gently just to soften the edge. Yeah, as long as you use something you've been using right along, it's going to agree, and you're going to have harmony. It's when you bring in 2 colors that, like when people use a black or a gray that they didn't mix themselves from the colors, sometimes it'll look all right, but more often than not, it's going to look discordant. You're going to be like, where'd that color come from? It doesn't seem to go with the rest of it. And you might not be able to tell what's wrong with the painting. You just might think that doesn't look very professional. And it's just the fact that your colors are not in harmony with the painting. At least try to mix one color, even if you have to go and grab, like maybe you're using ultramarine blue, so you just go and grab a burnt sienna. At least you got one color that you've already used. That's why I used the green and red, because I had already used them in my composition, so I know they're going to agree.
Colby Grant, Lindsay, I want to set up a table at a craft fair to sell my paintings. Any tips?
Yeah, I would probably recommend having like maybe some small prints or some greeting cards made of your paintings too, because people going to craft fairs often are not accustomed to buying art or spending over a certain amount of money. So, I mean, if you've been to the craft fair before and you can see kind of what the prices people are paying and what kind of artwork they're buying, if they're buying kind of fine artisan crafts, you'll probably do better trying to sell your paintings than if they're buying, $5 jewelry or kind of less skilled crafts, more like handicrafts versus artisan wares, I guess, is what I'm saying. I don't want to sound like I'm insulting anybody's craft, because I sell $5 earrings. I don't, there's nothing wrong with that. So just kind of see what the price point people are buying at that craft fair, and make sure you bring things that are in that price point. So maybe you bring a couple paintings that, are worth quite a bit of money, but then you also bring prints of that work or note cards of that work or something, so that you can make it affordable to the patrons. Because if the patrons there can't afford your work, or that's not what they have in that's not their expectation to buy something that expensive, they still can appreciate your work and walk away with something, because they might be turning to like painting customers later. They just may not be prepared to buy a painting. It's such a personal thing. My shadow got a little big over here, so I'm just gonna blot to soften it a little bit. Now we're gonna do some glazing on the leaf itself, and just use whatever brush you're most comfortable with. I think I want a brush a little bit bigger than that, but not as big as the other one I was using. We'll do this number 4 here. What number was that? That was a 4. This one feels bigger though. And we're going to use the colors that we've been using, but a little more full strength.
Kathy Smith. Lindsay, what is your opinion of Daniel Smith paints?
They're lovely. They're expensive, but they're really nice. I would recommend, they have a little 6-color set, and I grabbed it. I think they're about $30. You can find them. I know Jerry's has it for about $30, and they always have it in stock. And that gives you 2 versions of each primary. It gives you a cool blue, a warm blue, a cool red, warm blue, warm red, and cool yellow, warm yellow, and you can mix a ton of colors from that. If you could only buy 1 tube of paint though, I would recommend French Ultramarine, because it granulates so beautifully that whatever you mix it with has that beautiful textured quality. So yeah, they're wonderful paints. They're very expensive, but they're also made in the United States, and they're just really high quality. I just ordered a couple of their watercolor sticks because I'm curious. I've heard they're just the same as the paint, just dried out, kind of like a pan. So they're more affordable than like tubes. So I'm hoping that they're really good quality, as they say, but I'll let you know when I get them. I ordered a couple colors I don't have in other lines too. I ordered cobalt teal. I do have that in core, but and I ordered sodalite, I think, and serpentine, genuine tubes. You don't have to worry about them busting in the mail or anything like that, because they're solid.
Caldria Layson. Glazing. Every time I try to build layer glaze, I get mud. Any tips?
Yep. Where I'm glazing here, I want to glaze, like I'm glazing with the red, I want to glaze over an area that either has red or yellow, because if I glaze over green, I'm in the mud. So as long as you just think of how would that color mix with the color underneath. If it would mix mud, then don't use it. And when you're doing the little leaves here, try to find a barrier. So I've got these 2 veins as my barrier, so I can add my paint in there, and then I can rinse my brush off, and I can drag off the edge there where there's no barrier, so it just kind of feathers off. And you can go over a couple places, like you can do 2 segments of your leaf that way. But just kind of think of where your colors are. Now, I'm kind of looking at this now thinking, I wish I had a brighter red. So I'm going to mix a little crimson with that cadmium red, because I want to have that shade. I want to have that shade represented, but I need a little bit brighter color. So I am going to go ahead and add some of that in there, just so I have a nice bright red. Would have been easier to make my gray if I had that red originally too.
Joe Maskey likes the Daniel Smith Verditer blue. It's his favorite. Sophia Orozco. Lindsay, what do you think about the Derwent graphic liners?
I've never used them. Graphic liners. No, I've never used them.
Graphic with a K.
Huh, I haven't used them. I cannot comment. I like the Graphitint watercolor pencils though, because I like graphite, water-soluble graphite and color together. They're pretty.
Zach Penn, are core watercolors any good? I got a sample of them and they seemed all right.
I like them.
Benny likes them too. Benny Chavez.
Yeah, and they're
he's in all caps.
They're kind of a steal of a deal too, because they're fairly new. So they're selling them at a very reasonable price, especially if you buy one of the sets. The intro sets are like, I think Jerry's had them for $20.99 a set of 6 tubes in a pretty little tin. So yeah, I like them. I mean, and the pigments are what you would recognize for certain colors. Like you have the same pigment for ultramarine blue as you'd find everywhere else. So it's You know, they're a quality paint. You're not getting anything weird. They use a different binder, but it's not a bad binder. It's what I think archivists use, so it might actually even be better. I'm not sure. I have no issues with it. It re-wets really well when I let it dry in my palettes. You can kind of think of your leaf as a stained glass window, and you're painting in each of the little panes a different color. And this glazing builds up the color intensity and luminosity in the painting. It's kind of like playing rock, paper, scissors. I can glaze yellow over green. I can glaze yellow over red, but I can't glaze green over red or I'll get mud. So it's kind of like 2 of the 3 will go together at any time. But if I mix the red and green, I'm going to end up with brown, which we will use to make those little spots on the leaf at the end.
Mo M, please define glazing. And is it done over wet or dry paint?
Dry paint. You use wet paint over dry paint. Glazing is simply using a transparent glaze, a transparent color on top of a dried color. If you're doing an oil painting, you would use linseed oil instead of water, but the technique is the same.
Harmony D, what is a good place to get prints made online?
Gosh, if anyone could help her, I haven't done prints, so I know for like promotional stuff, if I was making postcards, you know, there's Vistaprint, there's a bunch of affordable ones, but as far as archival, I'm not sure. There's always ads in the artists' magazines, but I've never used any of them. I can't recommend anybody. But if you can, please help her out in the comments. Oops, that's the color I was using. So I'm just jumping around and adding colors wherever I feel like it's a little too muted. If I have a hard edge and I don't want the hard edge, I go in with a damp brush and I just soften it. So I got the hard edge there. I don't want it. I got a, excuse me, I've got a damp brush. I'm just going to go along the edges and smooth that out.
Caldria Layson, how pigmented do you want a glaze to be?
You want it transparent, so you want to be able to see through it. Some colors are more transparent than others. You don't want so much pigment there that you can't tell what you had underneath. You want to build up transparent color. Like you wouldn't put white in a glaze because it would block too much underneath. You can do a very subtle glaze, like if you were just trying to glaze pink over somebody's cheek in a portrait, or you could do a more potent glaze, like maybe you're trying to glaze like a nice deep blue on somebody's, you're doing a portrait and you're doing somebody's eyes and you want a nice deep blue eye, you could glaze like a phthalo blue that's really transparent and dark. So it totally depends on what you're trying to paint. I was thinking of doing a glazing 101 video too.
That would probably be a good idea.
Gotta get my watercolor pencil 101 video done first though.
Add it to the list.
Oh, that list is long. It's like on the Christmas movies and the kid would go and sit on Santa's lap and they'd have the list and then they'd let it go and it would like roll.
Roll, yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard to see how dark you want things until you have the relative darkness on the other parts of your flower too, your leaf too. Now I'm feeling like that is a little bit too solid green up there, so I'm gonna add some yellow because I know it's not gonna make mud. Just trying to make sure I go in the same color each time. Just let me know if you have any questions, either about glazing or any sort of other art in general. That's fine. I'm here for you during this hour.
Chat's pretty laid back today.
Everyone's out at the beach.
That and school started.
Yep, school's back in session for everybody now. We start back a little earlier than some.
Valerie Connell. Lindsay, pan pastels. I don't know what she means by that.
She probably wants me to do a tutorial on them. I'm sure she
Come on, Valerie, put it on the dog. Benny Chavez. Lindsay, I bought a black velvet oval wash and it's shedding hairs. Is there a fix for this or should I send it back?
Try washing it with shampoo, like a baby shampoo or something, and letting it dry, and then try it again. If it's still shedding, I think I probably would send it back because I don't think those are cheap. I think the black velvets are kind of
It doesn't
pricey.
sound cheap.
No. That's good branding right there. They just know it's expensive when you hear that name.
Name it Black Velvet. You know it's not cheap.
Sounds like Elizabeth Taylor's horse or something. That was National Velvet.
Wasn't she in Black Velvet?
Was it Black Velvet or National Velvet? I don't know. I can't watch those movies with animals. If it stars an animal, I'm not watching it because it's going to end up at the glue factory.
That's not true.
Old Yeller.
Benny Chavez says they were not expensive.
Oh, they weren't?
Still.
Yeah, still though. If you can't use it, you don't want to be hanging on stuff you can't use. All right, so I think I am going to mix up a nice dark brown, and I will work into the areas of my picture that are dry enough. Actually, I think I want to add a little bit of that red into my stem too. That stem's kind of dull looking.
It was National Velvet.
National Velvet.
Oh, I never saw it. Marcy M, where can I get good watercolor pencils without spending a fortune?
Well, the Jerry's Autorama, if you're looking for one of the big name brands, are going to have the best price. If you're looking for kind of, oh, you know what? If they have I'm not sure if they carry the Reeves watercolor pencils, but those are actually pretty decent and they're very affordable. I think you can get like a set of 36 for under $20. So that's a really good option. And Reeves is made by Winsor & Newton, so they might have them, but they are kind of a lower end line. So I'm not sure if they would or not, just because they're more of an artist supplier. But Prima and Spectrum Aqua are also, they're more geared towards crafters. They have a lower price point, but they're a good quality pencil. Just be careful with the Primas. They do duplicate between colors, so probably just get the basics for like $12 and mix from there. Or if you really like that and you think you might want to invest in high quality pencils, you might want to just save up until you can get like polychromo or the Albright Drawer pencils or a Caran d'Ache watercolor pencil or something that's a little bit more higher end.
Benny Chavez says, no, they are very expensive.
Oh, they are. Yeah, I thought they.
So, yes, wash it. And if it still sheds, send it back and get a new one.
Yeah.
Ian Jackson, Lindsay, have you used a palette knife with tube watercolor? It's great. Have a go.
Oh, gosh, I think I'd be afraid of wasting my precious. The palette knife.
No, that's why you can go get a nice, affordable student grade.
That's true. That's true. That's when I'll use a Reeves.
To get a sense of it and then use your good stuff.
Yeah, because then
on.
you could like spritz it with water because you'd have so much paint on there that you could like have these really big interesting puddles.
Oh, see what you've started, Ian? Valerie was asking when Pastels will be happening again.
Hopefully soon. I want to get back in the pastel tutorials. I had quite a backlog over the summer just in work projects that I have to get done, but yeah, I do want to get those out again. I do enjoy using them. If you have any specific Pan Pastel tutorials you'd like, go ahead and put them on in my request list, because I will be looking in there when I restart up the pastel series.
Baru Siva, are Dynasty Faux Squirrel Sable brushes good?
I haven't used the Dynasty. Wait. Is that, no, it's Black Swan I'm thinking of. I haven't used the Dynasty ones, so I can't tell you. I've used Princeton and I've used Mimic, and the Princeton Neptune rather, and Mimic, and I like both of those. The Mimics are half the price of the Neptunes though, so that's nice.
Emma Hunter, Lindsay, do you ever paint portraits? And who is your favorite Doctor Who?
I like Chris Eccleston for Doctor Who. And I don't do many portraits. I do occasionally. Portraits are like politics. If you don't get it just right, if you know who you're painting, the person knows you, and you don't get it just right, they can be awkward. So
that's why you only go to certain tattoo artists if you're getting portraits, because if you get a tattoo portrait and it's wrong, it's wrong.
Oh yeah, I saw some very interesting tattoos when I was at Funtown Splashtown.
Oh, I bet you saw sorts of Good tattoos there.
And the portrait ones are the ones that really really stuck out.
Yeah, because portrait ones are either really good or they're not.
They made an impression, I will say that.
I'm gonna say what kind of impression.
Things I can never unsee.
Nikki Wilson, what was your most difficult? She put printing, but I think she might have meant painting.
Most difficult painting. Well, recently my most difficult painting has been strawberries, because I did some strawberries that I really loved on vacation. And then I started watching Animation's class, and she's of course fantastic, but I really rebel against spending that long on a painting. So I'm like, okay, I got some good ideas, but I'm going to paint it my way. And I have not, my strawberries have get progressively worse because I'm like rebelling against her very methodical placement of layers and glazes, and you know, wanting to go to my normal ways of painting, very loose and fast. And so I've been having a lot of struggle with the strawberries. They were going to be today's live tutorial, but I decided against it because I had this nagging feeling that I was going to crash and burn pretty famously. I'll show you the strawberries that I was aiming for. I did these on vacation, but I actually had strawberries to look at, and they were kind of rotting before my eyes, so I had to finish them up, and I love the way this came out. I have not been able to replicate it since. So I've tried. I've got a few very sad attempts hanging around here somewhere, but
turn them into bookmarks. Nobody will know.
Seriously, yeah. One I did decide was all right for a greeting card, so that's going into the shop. But
lie by, what brush do you recommend as a scrubber?
Any oil painting hog brush that you have hanging around, chop it off if you need to. That makes a great scrubber. I find fabric painting brushes are too stiff, but like well-worn acrylic or oil painting hog brushes are fantastic. Just clean them real good.
Michelle King, Lindsay, how do you clean your Cottman palette? I'm worried about rinsing pigment away from the pans.
I just like for the little palette I have where the lid doesn't detach, I spritz it with water and wipe it off with a paper towel, and that's all I do. That's fine. There's not going to be enough residue in the creases that's gonna mess up a wash, so I wouldn't worry about that. I wonder if I should splatter this. I didn't splatter the other one. What do you think? Is Rich here?
No, he's not.
Oh, let's splatter it then. He can have a nice little surprise when he tunes into the replay.
Ian Jackson, Lindsay, are you doing dot day? What the
I don't
heck
even know what that is.
day?
So what is dot day? Can I splatter at dot day? That sounds like a splattery day. I don't know what that is.
Anna Kim, my archival ink pad is brand new but very dry. I've had to re-ink twice, but I think it's just dry. How can I reconstitute it?
I think she might have left a question on my glycerin video.
Okay.
And she said she just, if this is the same person, maybe there's a bad batch of archival ink going around. Who knows?
Could be.
But if it is the same person, what I recommend, I re-ink my archival ink pad literally once a year, and I stamp probably 500 images at least, because I re-ink it right before I prepare for my stamping workshops at Heirloom in June. So, and when I re-ink it, I fill the pad with ink, I let it soak in, I keep filling it and letting it soak until ink will physically just stay on the top, so I can see that it will not absorb anymore. So I really make sure it's re-inked. I think a lot of times people don't re-ink it enough, but if you just bought that, you should not have to re-ink it.
No, because I've had mine for ever, and I just re-inked it earlier this year. I bought a bottle of the re-inker, and it took almost the whole bottle because it was really dry. And the other thing I do too is when I store it, when I'm not using it, I store it upside down.
Yep.
And so that the ink will stay closer to the top.
Yep.
And that way when I do go, even if it is a little on the dry side, even when I do it, it's got more ink closer to the top.
Yeah. So what I think you ought to do, if you just bought that and you're already re-inking it, I think it was probably dried out when you bought it. So you're going to have to put almost a full bottle in there I mean, you want to keep inking. I probably can get 4 re-inkings out of a full bottle, but it could just have been really dried out, and you should not be dealing with that if it's a brand new ink pad you've paid top dollar for. I would contact Ranger, and they're really good about refunding or sending a replacement when something goes wrong with their product. So I would do that because it's no good if you can't use it, and you shouldn't have to re-ink it. You shouldn't have to re-ink it until you've used it, until you've gotten like probably 300 impressions from it. At least that's been my experience with the archival ink.
Yeah, I've used, that's the one I use all the time, especially when I'm doing the watercolor stuff, because it's waterproof.
Yeah,
so
it's my favorite
smudge.
waterproof ink pad. Yeah, I really like it too. I have it in black, jet black, I think it's called, and rich cocoa, I think is the brown. And yeah, I have a re-inker for each, but I think I've only had to re-ink the black one, and I just re-ink it about once a year. But that is that. Here you can see it without splatters. There is it with splatters, our little bonus, our bonus feature. Our seashells. Our seashells are dry, so you can kind of see the shift to dry there. This is the one we just did. Pretty darn close to the original, which is always nice when that happens. And I'm working on something else. I totally forgot I started it, but it was in my pad when I went to prepare today. Is this geranium I actually painted on my mother's. She had a big geranium going, and if anybody's interested in that, I did that with the Prima tropical watercolor confections. If anybody's interested in a tutorial on that, I think I want to do a little more to it because I feel like I need some details. I don't know if I'll do that with pen or what, but if anybody's interested, let me know, and that would be a separate tutorial. But for today, we're done. We've got 2 for the price of 1.
2 for the price of 1. And Ian Jackson, point dot day is a day where you create art from dots, like pointillism, and it's the 15th of September.
Oh, neat. No, I didn't know about that.
I didn't either.
But you know what? I have this really fantastic pen. It's called the Cuttalola, and you charge it up with your computer, like USB cord, and it does the dots for you. Because I have no patience for pointillism, but it just, like, the pen just goes and it does all the yes, that's my kind of pointillism. So, and I just got some waterproof inks for that. So maybe I'll do dot day and I'll use that pen because that sounds fantastic.
That might be fun.
What day was it again?
September 15th.
Oh, September 15th. That's really close. It's the day after the girl's birthday. I will have to see if I can get something done for that because that would be fun. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Any last minute questions before we go?
Yeah, we have more questions about glazing and color lifting.
Okay, is there a specific?
Glazing, my dry painting, and my base color lifts.
Well, it could be a couple things. Student quality paint does tend to lift more. Also, papers that are sized more tend to lift. And if you're not using a really soft brush when you glaze, then the friction that the brush makes against the paper, like this is super soft. But if I use something like this is an acrylics paint brush, this is stiffer. And this if I had this in wet, I'll show you on this painting we just did. So if I go in, I want to glaze some brown on top of this red. Well, if I start really fussing in there, look at that. I just lifted up that color underneath. See? Because this is too stiff. And it's instead of laying down the color, it's actually lifting up the color underneath. Can you see right there how it just lifted that up? So what I want to do is use a soft brush like this, and then I can lay my color over. Of course, once you've lifted it, your probably best bet is to let it dry and then go over with something else. But I'm betting you need a softer brush. And some colors lift more than others. Cadmiums are very liftable. So are anything that's iron oxide based. Anything that's got chunky minerals in it is going to lift a lot easier versus like the phthalo-cyan. Or if you look at your colors, it's generally the more vivid colors are more staining and less likely to lift. So just kind of keep that in mind. But soft brush and you should be fine.
And we had a bunch of people. Any requests for ideas on paintings, please put them on Lindsay's blog. That's where the ideas go. And we also had some people, questions go in all caps. I think a few new people were getting frustrated because I wasn't catching their questions in caps. That's how I catch them. So just the next time you're on and you have a question, put it in all caps. That catches my eye. I know that it's a question and not just regular chat. A lot of our great moderators have a good grasp on basic information, so they'll answer questions sometimes that aren't in caps, but we can't always catch them all. So
yeah, we're not perfect. So you know, and I forgot to mention the all caps thing too.
Yeah,
so.
And some days the chat's so busy, there's no way I can keep up with the questions that are in caps. So. And Ian Jackson wants one of those dot pens and wants to know if there's going to be a review of the dot pen.
I did a review on the dot pen last year when it first came out. So you can find that on my channel. I did an illustration of a poppy with it. And oh my gosh, it was so fun. The kids could not wait to use it. My son, who's not crazy about drawing, grabbed it and was having a ball drawing with it. So, and it's not that crazy expensive for, you know, when you're figuring it's a mechanical pen that, you know, is doing your pointillism for you. I think it was about $60. So it's not cheap, but when you figure out, when you consider what it is in your time, if you're an illustrator, you make your money back. Your first illustration using that versus
save your wrists and your hands
yes,
too.
Yes. I will warn you, it does kind of shake your hands because it is shaking the whole time, but it's really, really a fun tool. And so yeah, search it on my channel. There'll be links to it and everything. I want to thank everyone who stopped by today, and this will be available for a replay afterwards. So if you want to paint along and you didn't get a chance to, you can. I want to thank the folks over at jerry'sautorama.com for sponsoring our weekly live streams. I really appreciate their support, and you can find the best prices on all of your art supplies there, which is just fantastic because if you save some money, then that means more art supplies and higher quality art supplies, which is yay! And that class I mentioned, again, it's linked in the video description. It's called Getting Started Watercoloring Fresh Florals by Christy Rice. I think I'm gonna send her an email. I'm gonna say, you know what, we need to have a cup of coffee because you're fantastic. Did you know that? She's gonna be like, oh, block.
No, she won't. She won't. She won't.
This woman is crazy.
No.
Well, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting.